Sometimes, it feels like I'm stuck in quicksand. The more I try to pull myself up, the deeper I sink, and I'm not even sure I remember what solid ground feels like anymore. I'm 27, working a full-time job that pays barely enough to cover the basics, and every month, I watch the numbers on my bank statement shrink a little more. It's like I'm running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up, but my legs just can't keep pace. I graduated college with a degree that I hoped would open doors, but those doors seem to have been nailed shut. I took what I could get, an entry-level position at a company that doesn't pay much, doesn't offer benefits beyond the bare minimum, and definitely doesn't have room for much growth. I know a lot of people my age are in similar boats, but that doesn't make it any easier. There's this constant pressure, from bills, from student loans, from rent, from groceries, and it all piles up like a mountain I'm supposed to climb with bare hands. The cost of living around here has exploded in the past few years. Rent alone eats up nearly half my paycheck. When I moved into this tiny apartment 3 years ago, I thought it was a compromise but manageable. Now, the rent's gone up twice, and the place hasn't changed a bit. In fact, things are starting to wear down, but the price just keeps climbing. Utilities, gas, food, everything's following the same pattern. I go to the store and see the price of eggs, bread, even basic canned goods inch higher every time. It's exhausting, trying to calculate and recalculate what I can afford each week. Sometimes I lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how I'm supposed to build a life like this. I can't imagine buying a house, or even a decent used car. Vacations? A fancy dinner out? New clothes? Those are dreams that feel like they belong to someone else's life, not mine. I miss the days when I could save a little, put something aside for something bigger, but now every cent is tied up in survival. I feel trapped in a system that just keeps tightening around me. The worst part is the feeling that no matter how hard I work, it's not enough. I pick up extra shifts when I can, freelance odd jobs online, but it feels like a drop in the ocean. I'm exhausted all the time. My body aches from the stress, and my mind is constantly racing with worries. I want to be honest about how heavy this all feels. It's not just about money. It's about the way the pressure shapes every choice I make, every moment of my day. Even joy feels rationed, parceled out carefully because I'm afraid of what might come next if I let myself relax too much. I don't want to sound like I'm whining, but sometimes I do feel invisible. Like no one really sees the slow, grinding battle it takes to keep my head above water. When friends talk about new cars or weekend trips or investments, I smile and nod, but inside I'm thinking, that's not my reality. I've had to postpone things that once seemed like natural steps, moving out on my own from my childhood home, saving for graduate school, even simple things like going to the dentist regularly because it feels like a luxury. I remind myself it's temporary, but the truth is, I don't know when or if this will change. I try to cope the best I can. Meditation apps, journaling, late-night runs, small rituals that help me clear my mind, if only for a little while. I talk to close friends who understand, who don't judge but listen. Sometimes I cry in the shower because it's the only place I can be alone with all these feelings. And sometimes I just stare out the window, imagining what it would be like if money wasn't a chain around my ankles. It's a fragile hope, but it's the only thing that keeps me moving forward. I want more than anything to believe that one day, I'll break free, that I'll find a job that pays fairly, that the economy will shift, or that I'll discover a new path I hadn't thought of before. I dream of a life where I don't have to choose between groceries and a utility bill, where I can say yes to opportunities instead of no. It's hard to hold on to those dreams when the weight of reality is pressing down, but I do. Because what else is there? Giving up feels like sinking. So here I am, in this moment, being honest. I'm tired. I'm scared. But I'm still here. Trying to figure out how to live in a world that seems determined to make that as hard as possible. And maybe someday, I'll look back at this time and see it as a turning point, or at least a chapter in a longer story that doesn't end with defeat. For now, I keep going, one paycheck, one bill, one small moment at a time. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. I never thought I'd feel this way, like I'm stuck in a loop that's crushing me from every angle, but here I am. I'm 26, working full-time, trying to hold my life together, and yet, no matter how hard I try, the numbers just don't add up. Every paycheck feels like a drop in a bottomless bucket, and the weight of constant financial pressure drags me down day after day. It starts the moment I wake up. I lie in bed for a few minutes, dreading the reality that today will be just another day of stretching my dollars, juggling bills, and wondering if I'll have enough left for something as basic as food or gas. Rent alone takes up more than half of what I earn. And it's not like I'm living lavishly. My apartment is small, older than me, and has more issues than I care to count. But it's home, and it's all I can afford in this city that's only getting more expensive. When I look around, I see everything around me getting pricier. The grocery bills are insane. Even a simple meal like pasta and sauce that used to cost me a few dollars has now doubled. Public transport fares jumped again this month, and my phone bill feels like a luxury. I can't even remember the last time I bought a book or went out with friends without stressing over the cost. The little things everyone talks about, coffee runs, weekend trips, spontaneous nights out, feel like distant memories, if they ever really existed for me. It's maddening because my income hasn't kept pace. I've had a couple of raises here and there, but inflation feels like this giant, invisible monster that devours everything before I even get a chance to save. I'm stuck watching my expenses grow faster than my paychecks, and it's like being trapped in quicksand. Every step I take to move forward pulls me deeper. The emotional toll is exhausting. I get this gnawing anxiety in my chest every time I open my bank app. It's a constant reminder of how fragile things are. I lie awake at night thinking about bills, about what would happen if I got sick, if my job disappeared, or if an emergency popped up. The future feels so uncertain that sometimes it's hard to even plan a week ahead. It's like I'm carrying a heavy invisible backpack that I can't take off, and some days it makes me want to give up. Social media doesn't help. Everyone's posting about their vacations, new gadgets, fancy dinners. And here I am, hesitating over whether to order delivery or cook another round of beans and rice. It's isolating. I want to join in, to celebrate life, but the financial pressure keeps me locked in a quiet corner, feeling invisible and left out. I wonder if people around me see me as someone who's just managing, or if they notice the constant stress hiding behind my smile. Coping with this has become its own challenge. Some days, I escape into music or books, even if they're free from the library or streaming apps. Other times, I distract myself with work or binge-watch shows to forget the crushing weight for a little while. I try to remind myself that this isn't forever, that one day things will get better, but sometimes the hope feels fragile, like it might snap. I've had to postpone so many dreams. I wanted to go back to school, maybe get a master's degree, but tuition costs feel impossible right now. I dreamed of traveling, seeing new places, experiencing life beyond this bubble of survival. I imagined buying my own place someday, having a bit of security, but those thoughts seem naive in a market where rent eats up half a paycheck and housing prices climb endlessly. Sometimes I think about starting my own business, but the idea feels more like a fantasy than a plan when I'm barely making it month to month. What hurts most is the feeling of being trapped, not just by my circumstances, but by the system itself. I'm working hard, often more than 40 hours a week, sometimes 2 jobs, but the rewards don't follow. It's like the system is designed to keep people like me in this endless cycle of paycheck to paycheck living. Every time I try to get ahead, something else pops up, a car repair, a medical bill, an unexpected expense, that pulls me back. I wish I could say I have a clear path forward, but honestly, some days all I have is the determination to keep going. I remind myself that I'm not alone, even if it often feels that way. There are others out there feeling this same pressure, quietly battling their own financial struggles. That thought helps me, even if just a little. I don't want pity or empty advice, I want understanding. I want people to see that this isn't about laziness or bad choices, it's about a system that makes it nearly impossible to get ahead. I want to be heard without judgment, to share this reality openly, because the silence only makes it worse. So here I am, telling my story. Not because I have all the answers, but because this is my truth. A young adult caught in the relentless tide of rising expenses and stagnant income, trying to hold on to hope, piece together a future, and find a way out of the trap. I still dream, quietly, carefully, of a day when I don't have to worry about money every second. A day when I can invest in myself, pursue the things I love, and breathe a little easier. Until then, I'll keep fighting, one paycheck at a time. I never thought I'd end up feeling this way, like I'm running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up, and no matter how fast I move, I'm stuck in the same spot. Every day feels like a battle against invisible forces, the kind you can't see but can definitely feel crushing down on you. I'm in my mid-20s, working a job that pays just enough to keep the lights on and food in the fridge, but never enough to breathe easy or plan for anything beyond the next paycheck. The cost of living keeps rising around me, rent goes up, groceries get more expensive, the price of gas climbs, and yet my income feels frozen in place, barely moving. It's like I'm caught in this widening gap between what I earn and what I owe, and the gap grows bigger every month. I spend hours crunching numbers in my head. Should I skip the bus and walk the 15 minutes to work to save the fare? Should I eat the same cheap meal again, even though I'm sick of it? Should I buy medicine I need or hold off and hope it gets better on its own? These aren't trivial questions, they're decisions that eat away at my peace of mind. Every choice feels like a test of endurance. How much can I sacrifice before I break? I share a tiny apartment with 2 roommates because living alone would be impossible. Even splitting the rent, the price feels overwhelming. I can't help but feel trapped. The walls seem to close in a little more every month as bills pile up, and my dreams feel like distant echoes fading into the background noise of survival. There's this constant knot in my stomach, anxiety that never fully goes away. It wakes me in the middle of the night, wondering how I'm going to pay for unexpected expenses, like car repairs or medical bills. It follows me through the day, a shadow behind every task. I want to do better, to get ahead, but every step forward seems to cost more than I have. I think about the things I had planned for my future. I dreamed of finishing my degree, maybe going back to school to study something I'm passionate about. I wanted to travel, to see the world beyond this city, beyond these tight, worn streets. I thought I'd have savings, a little cushion, something to fall back on. But those dreams have been pushed aside, shelved indefinitely. There's no room for extra when just getting by feels like a full-time job. Sometimes I feel ashamed, like I'm failing somehow. Like everyone else has it figured out except me. But I know it's not just about personal failure. The economy moves like a beast, and I'm just one person trying to keep from getting crushed beneath its weight. Wages don't keep pace with prices. The system seems built to keep people like me barely afloat, constantly hustling but never really gaining ground. I cope the best I can. I've learned to live frugally, cutting corners, finding deals, and sometimes saying no to myself more than I'd like. I pick up extra shifts when possible, even when I'm exhausted. I keep track of every dollar with spreadsheets and apps, hoping that careful budgeting will be my lifeline. Still, the stress is relentless. Isolation creeps in too. I hesitate to make plans with friends because even small outings cost money I don't have. Sometimes I just lie awake, feeling disconnected, wondering if anyone else really understands what it's like to be stuck in this cycle. It's lonely, and that loneliness feeds the anxiety. Despite all this, I hold on to hope. I believe that things can change, even if slowly. I talk to friends who are in similar situations, and sharing our struggles reminds me I'm not alone. I try to celebrate small victories, a paid-off bill, a good week at work, a meal I actually enjoy. Those moments help me breathe, even if just for a little while. Living with this pressure every day is hard. It's raw and exhausting, but it's also real. I want to believe that someday I'll break free from this cycle, that I'll find a way to build the life I imagined when I was younger. Until then, I keep moving forward, step by step, holding tight to the hope that better days are ahead. It's strange how a feeling can settle in your chest like a stone, heavy and unyielding, refusing to move no matter how much you wish it would. That's how I've felt for the past few years, like I'm carrying this weight of constant financial pressure, dragging me down in a world where everything around me keeps getting more expensive, and my paycheck doesn't even come close to keeping pace. I'm 26 now. Just a few years out of college, working a job that pays the bills but leaves almost nothing left over. Every month, the math is the same: rent takes the biggest slice of my income, then utilities, groceries, transportation. By the time I'm done paying those, there's barely anything left for anything else. I try to remind myself how lucky I am to have steady work in a tough economy, but it doesn't make the sting any less real. There's this crushing sense of being stuck, trapped in a system where the cost of living is rising so fast, and wages barely budge. I remember when I first moved out on my own. I was hopeful, ambitious, ready to build a life. I found a tiny one-bedroom apartment that I could just afford on my salary at the time. Back then, rent was already a challenge, but I thought it was manageable, that I could handle it if I budgeted carefully. Now, that same apartment costs nearly 30% more than when I signed the lease. The landlord says they have no choice but to raise prices because property taxes and maintenance costs are rising, but it feels like my efforts and sacrifices don't matter. I'm just expected to keep paying more for the same place. Groceries have become a daily reminder of this reality too. I used to enjoy shopping, picking out fresh fruits and vegetables, trying new recipes. Now, I'm standing in the aisles staring at price tags, calculating what I can afford and what I have to leave behind. Sometimes I choose canned or frozen foods, not because I want to, but because fresh produce is too expensive. I know it's not healthy in the long run, but it's a trade-off I make so I can keep my utilities on and still have some money left over for gas. Social life? Almost non-existent. I haven't been out to eat with friends in months. Even meeting for coffee feels like a luxury. When someone asks if I want to go out, I want to say yes, but then the reality hits: I don't want to spend $10 on a cup of coffee when I'm barely making ends meet. I've started to decline invitations more often than not, and it's isolating. Sometimes I feel like I'm disappearing from people's lives because I can't keep up. Work is a mixed bag. I'm grateful to have a steady job, but it's not one I love or see a future in. I've asked for raises in the past, but the company's budget is tight, they say. Overtime hours aren't available. The thought of going back to school to get a better qualification is tempting, but tuition costs are prohibitive, and I can't risk losing my current income. Side gigs? I've tried, but after a 12-hour workday, I'm too exhausted to do anything else. The cycle feels endless. Emotionally, this constant pressure is exhausting. There's this low-grade anxiety that never leaves. I wake up wondering if my rent will be late, or if I'll have enough to fix my broken phone, or what I'll do if I get sick and can't work for a few days. The future feels uncertain, and hope can feel like a fragile thing, easy to crush under the weight of reality. I lie awake sometimes, staring at the ceiling, imagining a life where I don't have to stretch every dollar or sacrifice my well-being just to survive. And the dreams, oh, the dreams. I've had to put so many on hold. I wanted to travel, to see the world beyond this city that's become so expensive it feels like a trap. I wanted to save for a home, to create a space that's truly mine, but the down payment feels impossible. I even dreamed about starting a family someday, but with no financial stability, that's a hope I buried deep inside. Even simple things like going back to school or buying a decent car have been pushed into the realm of maybe someday. So how do I cope? I try to find small pockets of joy in things that don't cost much. I walk in the park when I can, I borrow books from the library, I find comfort in music and podcasts that help me escape, even if just for a little while. I've learned to be resourceful, to stretch meals and save on utilities, but there's a loneliness in that resourcefulness, a feeling of making do rather than thriving. I also talk to a few close friends about how I'm feeling. Being honest about the struggle helps me feel less alone. It's hard, though, because there's a stigma attached to financial hardship, and sometimes I worry about being judged or seen as incapable. But I know I'm not the only one stuck in this cycle, and sharing my story makes it a little easier to bear. Despite it all, I hold on to hope. I believe there's a way out, even if it's not clear yet. Maybe it's in switching careers, finding better opportunities, or in the economy changing enough to catch up with the cost of living. Maybe it's in unexpected moments of kindness or support. Maybe it's in redefining what success means for me, not just financial security, but finding peace and purpose in whatever I can create. I'm tired, yes. Sometimes overwhelmed. But I'm still here. Still trying. And maybe that's enough for now. This is my reality, a constant balancing act in a world that feels designed to keep people like me just one step behind. But sharing this, telling my truth, is my way of pushing back against that weight. It's a quiet rebellion, but it's mine. And I won't give up. I wake up every morning with a familiar knot in my stomach, a heaviness that doesn't quite go away even after I get out of bed. It's the weight of knowing that no matter how hard I try, the money I make will never feel like enough. My paycheck arrives, and it's like a cruel joke, a few $100s here, a few $100s there, but the bills? They keep marching forward, rising faster than I can keep up. Rent goes up again. Utilities climb. Groceries? Don't get me started. Even the little things, like a cup of coffee or a bus ticket, feel like luxuries some days. I'm 27, working 2 jobs, trying to claw my way out of this financial hole. I studied hard, graduated, but the degree I hoped would be my ticket to a stable life seems to have gotten lost somewhere between the skyrocketing cost of living and the stagnant wages that barely budge. I remember when I first moved out on my own, the excitement of independence, the dream of building something better. But that excitement slowly faded under the pressure of numbers on spreadsheets, the endless calculations of what can and cannot fit in my budget. Every day feels like a balancing act on a tightrope that's fraying at the edges. I wake up early to catch the bus, hoping to avoid a taxi fare I can't afford. I pack lunch because eating out means a dent in my already thin wallet. Sometimes, I skip meals just to make sure the electricity bill gets paid. My phone plan is the cheapest I can find, and even then, I'm constantly worried about unexpected fees. The emotional toll is hard to put into words. It's not just the financial strain, it's the feeling of being stuck, invisible to a system that seems designed to keep people like me in place. I see stories about economic growth, about markets booming, but none of it ever trickles down to me. It's like running on a treadmill that speeds up the longer I run, but no matter how fast I go, I'm not moving forward. There's this gnawing frustration, a quiet despair that creeps in during the quiet moments, when I'm alone with my thoughts. Some nights, I lie awake imagining what life would be like without this constant pressure. A life where I don't have to count every cent, where I could save instead of scrounging. I dream about traveling, about going back to school to study something I love rather than something practical. I imagine owning a small apartment, not just renting a cramped room in a rundown building. But these dreams feel distant, like stars I can see but never reach. I've had to postpone so many things. Starting a family? It feels irresponsible to even think about. Buying a car? Impossible. Investing in my health or hobbies? Luxury. I watch friends around me make these moves, getting promotions, moving into nicer places, starting relationships, and while I'm genuinely happy for them, there's this shadow of envy, a sadness that my path looks so different. Coping with all this is a daily battle. Sometimes I lose it, crying in the shower or breaking down after a long day of stretching every dollar. But most days, I put on a brave face. I find small moments of joy where I can, a walk in the park, a phone call with a friend, a good book borrowed from the library. These moments remind me that I'm more than my financial struggles, even if those struggles dominate my life. I also lean on routines. Budgeting apps, meal prepping, finding free community events. They help me feel a little more in control, even if the bigger picture remains daunting. And I hold on to hope that the economy will shift, that wages will catch up, that maybe someday I'll get a break. I know hope alone isn't enough, but it's what keeps me going when the system feels so unforgiving. Being caught in this cycle is exhausting and lonely. It's not just about money, it's about dignity, about the fear that I'm failing at the one thing society says I must master, financial independence. Yet, despite all this, I'm still here. Still fighting. Still dreaming, even if those dreams have to be quiet for now. Because one day, I want to look back and say I didn't give up, even when everything tried to hold me down. And maybe that's enough for now. I never thought I'd feel this way at 26, like I'm trapped in a cage with invisible bars, a cage made of bills, rent notices, and constant anxiety about money. Every month, the same story plays out, like a broken record, paycheck comes in, and before I can even breathe, it's already spoken for. Rent, utilities, groceries, transportation, insurance, all the essentials that don't feel essential when you're drowning in them. It's exhausting, this relentless cycle of scrambling just to keep my head above water. The economy has changed so much in the years since I started working full-time. When I got my first job right out of college, it felt like a stepping stone, a way to start building a future. But now, 3 years in, I'm still barely scraping by. Prices keep climbing, everywhere I look, everything costs more. Yet my income hasn't kept pace, not even close. I try to tell myself it's temporary, that I just need to hold on and something will give, but deep down, I know the truth. This is the new normal, and it's wearing me down. Some days, I sit at my kitchen table staring at my laptop screen, the glow illuminating a spreadsheet full of expenses and debts. I track every penny with painstaking care, hoping to find a margin somewhere, any little crack where I can squeeze out a bit of relief. But there's none. Not really. The cost of groceries alone feels like a punch to the gut. I remember when a simple trip to the store felt routine. Now, I skim prices and put items back just to keep the total within a self-imposed limit. Fresh produce, meat, even the coffee I used to enjoy in the mornings, sometimes I have to skip them because they're luxuries I can't afford. It's not just the money itself, it's the constant pressure that gets into my head. I lie awake some nights, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with calculations and worst-case scenarios. What if I lose my job? What if a medical emergency hits? What if I can't make rent next month? Those thoughts gnaw at me, relentless, like a shadow I can't shake. Sometimes it feels like my whole life is a balancing act on a thin wire, and the wind keeps picking up. Social life? That's something I've learned to let go of. Friends invite me out, but the truth is, I often say no, not because I don't want to see them, but because the cost adds up. The price of a movie ticket, dinner out, even just a few drinks, it's more than I can spare. So I stay in more, feeling the creeping loneliness, wondering if they get why I'm so distant lately. It's hard to explain that I'm not just being antisocial, it's survival. I envy those who can be carefree, who don't have to calculate every expenditure or decline invitations because they can't afford it. Sometimes, I catch myself dreaming about a different life, the kind of future I imagined when I was younger. Owning a home, traveling, building a career without feeling shackled by money worries. But those dreams seem to recede further every day. I've had to postpone or completely abandon plans, going back to school, starting my own business, even saving for a simple vacation. The safety net I hope to build remains out of reach. Instead, I'm caught in this loop, working hard but feeling like I'm going nowhere. Coping with this pressure isn't easy. I try to find small moments of peace, early morning walks before the day's chaos, reading a good book, calling my mom just to hear a familiar voice. But the weight of financial strain seeps into those moments too. It's a background hum of stress that never really fades. Sometimes, I catch myself feeling ashamed, like I'm failing somehow because I can't figure it out or make it work. But the truth is, it's not just about personal failure. It's about a system that seems designed to keep people like me in place, where the cost of living outpaces the means to live. I hold on to hope because I have to. Maybe one day the economy will shift, or I'll find a job that pays more than just enough to cover bills. Maybe I'll finally be able to breathe a little easier, to look ahead without that tight knot of worry in my chest. Until then, I keep moving forward, one day at a time, even if it feels like I'm stuck in place. This story isn't unique, I know that. So many young people are in this same boat, feeling caught in a system where expenses grow faster than incomes, where dreams are postponed indefinitely. It's frustrating and heartbreaking, but it's also a reminder that we're not alone. And maybe, someday soon, things will change. For now, all I can do is hold on to that hope and keep going. It's hard to describe exactly what it feels like to live with a constant financial pressure weighing on your shoulders every single day, but I'll try. I'm 28, working full-time, and somehow still feel like I'm drowning in a sea where the waves of expenses keep crashing harder and faster than I can swim to keep up. When I graduated college, I thought I had a solid plan, a decent job lined up, a small apartment I could afford, and the usual hopes of building a future. But the reality has been very different. Over the years, my income has barely changed, but everything else around me has spiraled upward: rent, utilities, groceries, transportation. It's like a cruel joke. I live paycheck to paycheck, even though I work hard and try to budget carefully. The system feels designed to keep me on the edge, never quite secure, always vulnerable. My rent alone is more than half my monthly take-home pay, and it feels like a slow but relentless squeeze. I moved into my apartment 5 years ago when the rent was affordable, but with every renewal, it goes up a bit more. Just last month, I got a notice for another increase, this time higher than usual because of market conditions. I don't know what market they're talking about, but it sure isn't the one I live in. It's the kind of thing that makes my chest tighten, that helpless feeling of knowing I have no choice but to pay more, or risk losing the only place I call home. Food is another constant stress. Every trip to the grocery store feels like a battle between wanting to eat well and knowing that fresh fruits, vegetables, and even basic staples have become luxury items. I've learned to buy on sale, stock up on canned goods, and cut back on meat and dairy. Sometimes, I go without something I need or want because it just doesn't fit into the budget. I know it's not healthy, but I don't have the option to eat better without going hungry later. Social life has taken a hit, too. I used to enjoy going out with friends, dinners, movies, occasional drinks, but those things are now off the table. Even the smallest expense feels like too much when I'm counting every penny. I say no to invitations more than I'd like, and that's lonely. Sometimes I wonder if people think I'm just uninterested, but it's really about money. I don't want to be the person who has to explain that the truth is I just can't afford it. Work doesn't offer much relief either. I'm stuck in a job that pays the bills but leaves no room for growth or savings. Raises are rare and small, and the cost of living increase far outpaces any raise I might get. I've thought about going back to school, changing careers, but tuition and living expenses make that feel like a luxury I can't afford. The idea of side jobs or gigs sounds tempting, but by the end of a long day, I'm drained and barely able to keep up with my main job, let alone hustle for extra income. Emotionally, it's exhausting. There's a persistent anxiety about money, not just about the bills due tomorrow, but the bigger picture of what happens if something unexpected breaks down, if I get sick, or if the economy gets worse. It feels like walking a tightrope with no safety net. The stress bleeds into everything: sleep, relationships, even my sense of self-worth. I sometimes catch myself thinking, if only I could get ahead, then I'd feel better. But every month, it's the same cycle. Paycheck in, bills out, zero savings, just hoping to make it to the next payday. Dreams have had to be postponed, or abandoned, in some cases. I wanted to travel, to explore new places and experience the world. I dreamed of owning my own home someday, building a space that's truly mine. I even imagined starting a family, but with this financial strain, those dreams feel like distant, maybe unreachable stars. Instead, I focus on just getting through each day, each month, hoping that someday things will be different. How do I cope? I try to find small moments of peace in simple pleasures: walks in the park, listening to music, reading borrowed books. I'm careful with money, tracking every dollar, cutting back wherever I can, but that's a double-edged sword because it reminds me of all the things I'm missing. I've opened up to a few close friends about how I feel, and that honesty helps a little. Sometimes, just knowing I'm not alone makes the weight feel a bit lighter. I'm tired, but I'm still holding on. There's a stubborn part of me that believes things can improve, even if slowly. Maybe a better job will come along, or the economy will shift, or maybe I'll find a way to build a more stable life step by step. For now, I take it day by day, reminding myself that survival is also a kind of strength. This isn't just my story. It's the story of so many people caught in a system where the cost of living outpaces their income, where financial pressure is a daily reality that shapes every decision, every emotion, every hope. And maybe by sharing it, we can start to make that system a little less unforgiving. I never thought money would become the lens through which I see everything, the good, the bad, and the deeply frustrating in between. But here I am, at 27, living paycheck to paycheck, watching the cost of everything I need climb faster than my paycheck can catch up. It feels like I'm on a treadmill that's speeding up, and no matter how fast I run, the ground beneath me just slips away. I grew up with a pretty normal middle-class life, or at least that's what I thought then. My parents worked hard, made sacrifices, and always managed to keep things steady. When I graduated college, I believed if I got a decent job, kept my expenses in check, and made smart choices, I'd be okay. But the reality of the economy, the rising rents, groceries, utilities, and the seemingly endless stream of bills, hit me like a brick wall. Suddenly, what I thought was enough turned into a constant scramble to cover the basics. Every month feels like a balancing act. Rent alone takes a huge chunk of my income. I'm in a tiny, cramped apartment that barely feels like home because it's all I can afford within the city limits where the jobs are. I keep telling myself it's temporary, that I'm just paying my dues, but temporary has stretched into years. Utilities fluctuate. Some months the heating bill is a nightmare, especially during those freezing winter nights when I try to convince myself that 3 layers of sweaters and an electric blanket count as warm enough. The grocery store feels like a minefield. I have to calculate every meal, clip coupons obsessively, and skip fresh produce because it's too expensive. I'm constantly making mental lists, which bills to prioritize, which social invitations to decline, what repairs to postpone on my aging laptop. It's exhausting, physically and emotionally. I wake up some days feeling already defeated, anxious about what unexpected expense might hit next, a car repair, a medical bill, or even just the cost of replacing worn-out shoes. I feel trapped in this system where prices rise relentlessly, but my income remains stubbornly stagnant. The frustration grows when I scroll through social media and see people my age traveling, buying homes, or even starting families. It's like they're living in a parallel universe where money isn't a constant shadow. The pressure to keep up often makes me feel ashamed, too. I try not to tell people how tight things really are because I don't want to sound like I'm complaining or being irresponsible. There's this unspoken expectation to be adulting successfully, paying bills on time, having savings, maybe even investing. But for me, those are dreams deferred indefinitely. I don't have a savings account. The emergency fund is just a phrase I've heard about, something for later, which somehow never comes. I cope the best I can. I've become an expert at finding free or cheap entertainment, library books, streaming movies I've seen a dozen times, and walks in the park. I hang out with friends who understand or are in similar situations, which helps. There's comfort in shared struggle, even if it's not ideal. Sometimes, I journal or talk to a therapist to keep my mental health afloat. I've learned to appreciate the small wins, like making it through the month without missing a payment or finding a discount on something I needed. Despite the weight of it all, I still hold on to hope. I dream about a future where I'm not constantly stressed about money, where I can afford to move into a nicer place, maybe travel a bit, or even start a family without the cloud of financial anxiety hanging over me. I want to save for a rainy day, but more than that, I want to feel secure. I want to believe that my hard work will eventually pay off, that this cycle isn't endless. But right now, the most honest feeling is this bittersweet mix of determination and exhaustion. Determined not to give up on myself, even when the system feels designed to keep me struggling. Exhausted by the constant push and pull, the compromises I have to make, the dreams I've shelved to survive. It's a quiet kind of pain, the kind that doesn't always show on the surface but lives deep inside, the feeling of being caught in an economic grind that's bigger than me, yet shaping every choice I make. I'm trying to hold on to who I am beyond the numbers in my bank account, but it's a daily challenge. Sometimes I wonder if I'll look back on this time as a chapter of growth or just a long season of waiting, for better wages, for more opportunity, for relief. Either way, I keep moving forward, even when the steps feel heavy and the path uncertain. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. Some days, it feels like I'm running in place, like the harder I try, the more stuck I become. Every morning I wake up knowing I have to face the same relentless grind, work enough hours just to cover last month's bills and hope I don't get hit by some unexpected expense that throws everything off balance. The cost of living keeps rising, rent, groceries, utilities, and yet my paycheck barely budges. It's exhausting in a way that goes beyond physical tiredness. It's this constant mental weight, this gnawing anxiety that never quite lets me breathe. I'm 26, working full-time, living in a city that used to feel like a place of opportunity but now feels more like a cage. When I graduated college, I had dreams, real ones. I wanted to travel, learn new skills, maybe even start my own business someday. But those dreams seem farther away every day. Instead, I spend hours budgeting, cutting corners, and trying not to panic when a small emergency arises, like a car repair or a medical bill. It's like the system is designed to keep people like me running just fast enough to survive, never quite fast enough to thrive. I live in a tiny apartment with peeling paint and a noisy heater that blares on cold nights. I've moved away from the neighborhood I grew up in because rent there doubled faster than I could keep up with, and I thought, maybe a cheaper place would help. It did, for a while, but cheaper still means expensive when your income is barely keeping pace. Sometimes I think about the people who can afford to buy homes, start families, or just take a day off without worrying about paychecks. It makes me feel invisible, like I'm living on the margins where no one really notices or cares. Every day, decisions come with a cost. Do I buy groceries or pay for my bus pass? Can I afford to refill my prescription this month or do I risk running low? Even small things, like going out with friends, feel like a luxury. Social invitations often come with an unspoken question, will I have to say no again? I don't want to be the person who's always cutting back, always missing out, but the truth is, I don't have a choice. Work is stable but uninspiring. I'm good at what I do, but raises are rare and usually don't keep up with inflation. I've taken on side gigs here and there, delivering food, freelance writing, anything to make a little extra cash. But juggling multiple jobs eats into the time I need to rest, to think about the future, or to just be. It's like my life is on hold, paused until I can catch up financially. But there's no finish line, no clear path to a better place. Emotionally, it's a roller coaster. I feel guilty when I can't help my family or friends because money is tight. I feel ashamed when I have to borrow or ask for help. And sometimes, I feel so overwhelmed that I just want to give up, to stop trying so hard. But I don't. I keep going because what else can I do? Somewhere beneath all the stress, I still hold on to hope. Hope that maybe, if I keep pushing, something will change. Maybe a promotion, a chance encounter, or just a break in the economy. But hope is fragile when the reality feels so heavy. I often think about how different life could be if I wasn't trapped in this endless cycle of rising expenses and stagnant income. I imagine a morning where I don't have to worry about whether the electricity bill will get paid or if I can afford a doctor's visit. I imagine traveling to places I've only seen in photos, or starting a hobby that doesn't have to be free. I imagine a future where I can make choices based on what I want, not just what I can barely afford. For now, though, I take it day by day. I count small victories, making it through the week without missing a payment, finding a cheaper meal, reconnecting with friends over a walk instead of dinner out. I remind myself that I'm not alone, so many people are in the same boat, trying to find a way forward in a system that feels stacked against us. Maybe one day I'll look back and see this period as a test of resilience, a time that shaped me into someone stronger. But today, it just feels like survival. And that's okay. I'm still here, still trying, still dreaming, even if those dreams have to wait a little longer. That's the truth of my life right now. A delicate balance between hope and reality, and the quiet determination to keep moving forward, no matter how heavy the burden feels. It's strange how money can shape every inch of your day, even when you barely have any to spend. I never thought I'd be so weighed down by something as simple as dollars and cents, but here I am, 27, working hard, yet feeling like I'm sinking deeper every month. The world keeps moving forward, but I'm stuck in a loop where expenses grow faster than my paycheck, and hope starts to feel like a distant luxury. Every morning begins with a familiar tension in my chest. I scroll through my bank app, almost afraid of what I'll see. The balance stares back, smaller than I hoped. Rent is due in a few days, and after that, there's barely enough left for groceries or gas. Utility bills are creeping up, too, and I keep hearing about inflation everywhere I turn. The price of milk, the price of bread, it all seems to inch upward every time I shop. I try to keep up, but the gap between what I earn and what I need only widens. I've had to make choices that feel like a slow erosion of my dignity. Skipping meals to save money. Walking long stretches because filling my tank means stretching the rest of my budget thin. Saying no to invitations, even when I'm lonely, because I can't afford the small extras like a coffee or a night out. These decisions don't feel like small sacrifices anymore, they feel like chains holding me down. At work, I do my best to stay motivated. My job doesn't pay much, and raises are few and far between. The cost of living outpaces my income so dramatically that it's almost laughable to think about getting ahead. The system feels rigged in a way, where your effort doesn't guarantee progress. I watch friends move into nicer apartments, buy cars, travel, and I wonder when or if that will ever be possible for me. The weight of watching others live what feels like a normal life while I'm stuck makes the isolation sting. Sometimes the stress seeps into my relationships. I avoid talking about money because I don't want to feel judged or pitted. I want to be strong for the people around me, but inside I'm crumbling. The anxiety gnaws at me, and some nights I lie awake, worrying about bills, debts, and the future. I'm terrified of emergencies, a broken appliance, a medical bill, or even a flat tire could throw me into chaos. I have no safety net. The idea of planning ahead feels like a cruel joke. I've had dreams, once. I wanted to finish school, maybe get a better job, travel somewhere far away. I wanted to save for a place of my own, to build a stable life. But those dreams have been pushed back, shelved, or erased by the constant pressure to just survive. Every dollar saved feels like a mountain climbed, yet it's never enough. I'm stuck in a system that feels designed to keep me scrambling, working harder just to stay in place. Despite all this, I try to hold on. I budget obsessively, clip coupons, cook everything at home, and pick up extra shifts when I can. I talk with friends who understand, and sometimes those conversations bring a small relief, a reminder that I'm not alone. I celebrate the small victories, a paid-off bill, a week without dipping into credit, finding a cheaper grocery store. These moments give me a flicker of hope. I want to believe things will get better. I want to believe I'll break free from this cycle someday. But the truth is, living like this is raw and draining. It takes every ounce of strength to keep going when the future looks so uncertain. Still, I keep moving forward, step by step, hoping that someday the pressure will ease and the dreams I've postponed will have a chance to breathe again. Some days it feels like I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up, and no matter how fast I run, I'm stuck in the same place, or worse, sliding backward. I'm 25 now, and for as long as I can remember, money has been this persistent, gnawing pressure at the back of my mind. Not just money itself, but the way the world seems stacked against me and people like me, wages frozen in place while everything else, rent, food, bills, keeps climbing higher, faster. When I finished college, I was hopeful. I imagined that with a degree and some hard work, I'd be able to build a life, save up, maybe travel a bit, and even think about what comes next, owning a place, settling down, all that grown-up stuff. Instead, I landed a job that pays just enough to cover rent and basic necessities, with maybe a few dollars left if I'm careful. But careful only stretches so far when the cost of everything else is rising faster than my paycheck. Take rent, for example. When I first moved into my little one-bedroom apartment 3 years ago, it was borderline affordable. Now, the landlord's notices about rent hikes have become regular, like clockwork, always justified by market trends or increased maintenance costs. What they don't mention is how those small percentage increases accumulate until rent feels like a noose tightening around my monthly budget. I've learned to dread those letters, the sudden shrinking of my financial breathing room. Food shopping is a series of compromises. I remember when I could pick fresh fruits and vegetables without blinking twice. Now, I'm scanning price tags and comparing brands, leaning heavily on canned goods and whatever's on sale. Sometimes I skip meals, not because I want to but because I have to. It's cheaper to eat less than to stretch my budget too thin. And when I do eat, I worry about the toll this has on my health. It's frustrating to realize that simply eating well is now a privilege I can't always afford. Social life is another casualty. I've become the friend who always declines invitations because I have to work or save money. The truth is, even a simple coffee meetup feels like a luxury I can't justify. This isolation eats at me in a different way. It's not just loneliness, it's the feeling that I'm slowly fading from the lives of people I care about. I want to be there, to laugh and share and connect, but the costs make it impossible. I often wonder if people think I don't care, when really I just can't afford to. Work itself is a mixed blessing. I'm thankful to have a steady job, but it's exhausting and offers little chance for advancement or a meaningful raise. I've tried looking for other jobs, but the market is competitive, and many higher-paying roles require experience or credentials I don't have. Going back to school feels like a distant dream. Tuition prices and living expenses make it unattainable right now. Even trying to pick up side gigs hasn't worked well. After long days, I'm too drained to do more, and the extra money is never enough to make a significant difference. Emotionally, this constant financial pressure is draining. There's a low hum of anxiety that follows me everywhere, a fear of what might go wrong, a medical emergency, a broken appliance, an unexpected expense that could send everything spiraling out of control. I lie awake at night, running through worst-case scenarios, calculating how I'd manage if something happened. It's exhausting. I try to remind myself that I'm doing what I can, but it's hard not to feel stuck, trapped in a system where the gap between income and expenses only widens. I've had to postpone so many dreams. I dreamed of traveling, seeing new places, learning about different cultures, but even a weekend trip feels impossible now. I thought about saving for a down payment on a home, building something stable and mine, but the idea feels almost laughable in the current market. Starting a family is a hope I quietly shelve because I know I can't provide what I want for a child. Even small goals, like buying a reliable car or investing in further education, feel like luxuries I have to give up. So how do I cope? I find small ways to carve out moments of peace and normalcy. I walk in the park nearby when I can, letting the fresh air clear my head. I borrow books from the library or watch free shows online. I talk honestly with a few close friends about how hard it is, which helps me feel less alone, even if I can't fix the problem overnight. Budgeting has become a kind of skill I constantly hone, tracking every cent, cutting back wherever possible, though that often just reminds me of what I'm missing. Despite all this, I hold on to hope. I try to believe that someday the economy might shift, that better opportunities will come, or that I'll find a way to build the life I want, even if it's slow and steady. Sometimes I imagine waking up one day without that knot of worry in my chest, breathing freely without counting pennies, planning for the future with excitement instead of fear. I'm tired. I'm scared. But I'm still here, still trying. And I think that counts for something. This is my reality, an ongoing struggle in a world that feels rigged, where expenses climb and wages stall. But it's also a story of resilience, honesty, and hope, even when things feel impossible. Sharing this is part of that hope, a way to say I'm not invisible, and maybe, by telling the truth, we can start to change the system that keeps so many of us trapped. I wake up most mornings feeling the weight of everything before my feet even touch the floor. The sound of the alarm is less a call to action and more a reminder that another day of juggling bills, budgeting, and trying not to break down has arrived. I'm 26, and while some people my age talk about travel plans or career moves, my reality is a tightrope walk with no safety net, trying to stretch every dollar until it screams. The cost of living feels like this relentless tide, always creeping higher, and I'm just barely keeping my head above water. Rent alone gobbles up more than half of my monthly income. It's this tiny apartment in a neighborhood that's getting too expensive according to my friends who've moved farther out. But moving isn't a simple choice, either rent jumps, commute becomes a nightmare, or I lose the little stability I have. Every month, the utilities, groceries, internet, and phone bills chip away at what's left after rent. And the numbers don't add up unless I sacrifice something essential or something that makes life bearable. I still remember the moment I truly felt trapped. It wasn't dramatic. No sudden eviction notice, no emergency bill. It was the quiet realization that my paycheck wasn't enough anymore. For years, I had hoped raises or side gigs would close the gap, but with inflation soaring, everything just feels like a race where the finish line keeps moving further away. I tried to keep up, taking on extra shifts, freelancing at night, even selling stuff I loved just to scrape together some extra cash. But it's like pouring water into a bucket with a hole, no matter how much I add, it's never full. There are days I lie awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the things I'm missing out on. Friends get married, travel, buy homes. Meanwhile, I calculate how many times I can afford to eat out this month or if I can finally upgrade my phone without sinking into debt. I postponed dreams that once felt so close, finishing a course to boost my career, saving up to move somewhere better, or even just taking a real vacation to clear my head. Those hopes are tucked away like fragile paper, too precious and too easily torn by the harsh realities of money. Emotionally, it's exhausting. The pressure to stay afloat makes me anxious, sometimes borderline hopeless. There's guilt too, guilt about not being able to help my family, guilt about turning down invitations because I can't afford them, guilt about always saying no. I see my friends post about nights out or new gadgets, and I'm happy for them, but there's a sting underneath. Not because I envy, but because I wonder if I'll ever get there. The system feels rigged against people like me. It's like living in a maze where the walls keep closing in and the exit keeps moving. Coping isn't easy, but I've learned to find small pockets of relief. Journaling helps me process the anxiety and frustration. Sometimes I go for long walks, just to clear my mind, even if I can't afford a proper break. I've started cooking at home more, something that's both a money saver and a tiny creative outlet. And there's this quiet pride in those little wins. Making it through another month without missing a bill, managing to save a small emergency fund, or finally paying off a credit card balance. These victories remind me I'm still fighting. But the hardest part is the constant uncertainty. What if I lose my job? What if rent spikes again? What if I get sick and can't work? These what-ifs linger like shadows, tightening their grip whenever I dare to imagine a future without financial strain. Still, I cling to hope, because giving up feels worse. I imagine a day when I'm not counting pennies, when I can invest in myself without fear, when I can breathe without that gnawing pressure in my chest. Maybe I'll go back to school, or start a business, or simply afford to travel without worry. For now, these dreams are quiet companions that keep me moving forward. I'm trying to remind myself that this isn't a failure on my part. The economy isn't personal, even if it feels that way. It's a system designed for growth, but not for everyone to grow equally. And while it's easy to feel invisible or stuck, I'm learning to advocate for myself, to seek support when I need it, and to hold on to my humanity beyond the numbers in my bank account. Every day is a battle, yes, but it's also a testament to resilience. I'm still here. I'm still hoping. And somehow, that makes all the difference. I wake up every morning with this familiar, sinking feeling, like the weight of the world's expenses is pressing down on my chest before I've even gotten out of bed. The alarm goes off, and before I can even stretch or take a deep breath, my mind is already running through the endless list of bills, rent, groceries, gas, and the small, creeping costs I try not to notice because they add up faster than I can handle. It's not like I don't work hard. I have a steady job, well, steady enough to keep food on the table and the lights on, but somehow, no matter how many hours I put in or how carefully I budget, I'm always one step behind. One unexpected expense, like a car repair or a medical bill, sends me into panic mode. I scramble, borrow from friends or family if I can, or worse, I rack up more debt that just burrows me deeper into this hole. It feels like running on a treadmill that speeds up every time I get close to catching up. The pace is merciless, and the ground keeps shifting. Some days, I stare at the ceiling, feeling crushed by the invisible chains of this system I'm stuck in. Expenses are growing faster than my paycheck, faster than my ability to save. Rent went up again last month, and groceries feel like they're on a never-ending roller coaster. I cut out luxuries, of course, no more dining out, no new clothes, no weekend trips, but it barely makes a dent. Even small things, like the price of gas or the electricity bill, feel like a betrayal because they chip away at my already tight budget. I try to keep my emotions in check, but it's exhausting. Sometimes I feel angry, at the system, at myself, at how unfair it all seems. Other times, I feel numb, as if I'm just going through the motions to survive. I catch myself withdrawing from friends because I don't want to explain why I can't join them or why I'm always the one saying no. There's a deep loneliness that comes from feeling trapped, like everyone else is moving forward while I'm stuck treading water. I remember the dreams I used to have, the ones I thought I'd chase once I graduated college. Travel the world. Buy a place of my own. Start saving for a future that felt like it was mine to shape. But those dreams keep slipping further away. I've had to postpone them, sometimes indefinitely, because the here and now demands so much of me. I tell myself these sacrifices are temporary, but the longer the struggle lasts, the harder it is to hold on to hope. Coping isn't easy. Some days, I escape into books or TV shows, anything to give my mind a break. Other days, I lean on the few people I trust, even if it's just to say, I'm overwhelmed. I've started tracking my expenses religiously, trying to find any small area to cut, but the margins are razor thin. I remind myself that I'm not alone, even though it often feels that way. There are millions like me, trying to keep their heads above water while the cost of living surges ahead. The hardest part is the feeling of powerlessness, like the system is set up to keep me on this endless cycle of struggle. It's not just about money, it's about dignity, about having the freedom to live without constant stress. I wonder sometimes if it will ever get better or if this is just the new normal for my generation. It's scary to imagine a future where financial pressure never lets up, where every day is a balancing act on a tightrope stretched thin. But despite all this, I try to hold on to my dreams, even if they're quietly tucked away for now. I want to believe that someday, maybe soon, I'll find a way out, that my hard work will pay off in a way that lets me breathe again. Until then, I keep going, even if it's just one small step at a time, hoping that the weight will lift and the future will be kinder. Because living like this, feeling trapped and stretched thin, it's not how I want my story to end. Some mornings, I wake up and the first thing I feel is that tight, sinking knot in my chest. It's the same knot I've carried for years now, since I graduated college and stepped into the real world, only to find that the reality is far harsher than I ever expected. I'm 27, working a full-time job that pays just enough to cover the essentials, but it never feels like enough. The cost of living climbs steadily, while my paycheck stays stubbornly flat, like it's stuck on some broken elevator. And I'm trapped between the two, squeezed by rising rent, food prices, and bills that keep going up, faster than I can earn. It's frustrating. Every decision I make is weighed down by money, or the lack of it. I can't remember the last time I bought something without immediately calculating what else I'll have to skip. When I get my paycheck, I mentally divide it into categories: rent, utilities, groceries, transportation, and whatever's left is maybe for small comforts or savings, which, truth be told, rarely happens. Rent alone swallows more than half of my income, and the landlord reminds me every year that prices have to go up to keep pace with the market. But whose market? Certainly not mine. My apartment is small, older, and far from ideal, but it's what I can afford. I remember moving in, thinking it was manageable, thinking I was making a responsible choice. Now, it feels like a cage, not a home. And if I lose this place because I can't keep up, I don't know what I'd do. The city's rent is sky high, and cheaper places are either unsafe or hours away from work. Food used to be a pleasure, a way to relax, to nourish myself, to experiment with recipes. Now, it's a source of stress. Prices for fresh produce, meat, and dairy keep climbing, so I've shifted to buying canned goods, bulk rice, frozen vegetables. It's a compromise that hurts my body and my soul. I've skipped meals before, not from choice but necessity. It's humiliating and exhausting, but what choice do I have when I have to choose between eating and paying a bill? Socializing has become a luxury I rarely indulge in. Friends invite me out, and I want to say yes, but the $10 coffee or $15 dinner feels like a luxury I can't justify. Over time, I've stopped answering texts or declined invitations more often than not. It's lonely. Sometimes I wonder if people think I don't care, but the truth is I'm just trying to survive. The isolation weighs heavily on me, but I don't want to be a burden or sound like I'm complaining. Work is a mixed bag. I'm thankful to have a steady job, but it's far from my dream career, and the pay isn't keeping up with inflation. Raises are rare, and usually just a few percentage points that don't cover much. I've thought about going back to school, but the cost is intimidating. Tuition, books, and living expenses feel like a mountain I can't climb while covering day-to-day costs. I've tried freelance gigs on the side, but juggling those with a full-time job leaves me exhausted, and the money barely moves the needle. Emotionally, this constant pressure wears me down. There's a persistent anxiety gnawing at me. What if an unexpected expense comes up? A medical bill, a car repair, a broken appliance? There's no safety net, no cushion. I lie awake at night running through worst-case scenarios, wondering how I'd manage if something went wrong. It's hard to plan for the future when the present is so precarious. Dreams I once had now feel distant or postponed indefinitely. I dreamed of traveling, to see new places, meet new people, but the thought of saving for a trip feels almost laughable. I imagined buying a home, having a space to call my own, but rising housing costs have pushed that farther away with every rent increase. I even thought about starting a family someday, but the financial uncertainty makes that feel impossible right now. How do I cope? I try to find small moments of peace in the chaos. I take walks in the park near my apartment, which is free and clears my head. I borrow books and movies from the library, finding comfort in stories that take me elsewhere. I'm careful with money, tracking every cent, trying to stretch meals and bills. Sometimes, I open up to a close friend about how hard it is, which helps me feel less alone, though I don't do it often. Despite all this, I hold on to hope, fragile but real. I believe someday things will change, maybe a better job, a shift in the economy, or a new opportunity one haven't seen yet. I imagine waking up without that heavy knot in my chest, with enough money to breathe and dream again. For now, I take it one day at a time, reminding myself that survival is its own kind of courage. This is my truth, living trapped in a system where expenses rise faster than income, where every day is a balancing act between making ends meet and holding on to hope. It's hard, lonely, and sometimes overwhelming. But sharing this story is part of my fight, a quiet way to say I'm still here, still trying, and still dreaming of better days. I never thought I'd end up feeling this way, like I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up. No matter how hard I push, I just can't get ahead. I'm 27, with a full-time job, a decent education, and yet, somehow, the pile of bills waiting for me at the end of each month feels like a mountain that only grows higher. It's not that I don't work hard. I work. A lot. But the money I bring in barely stretches past the essentials, and every time I try to plan for the future, it slips further and further out of reach. The thing is, I know this isn't just me. I read stories about inflation, rising rent, grocery prices shooting up, and all I can think is, yeah, that's my life. My paycheck goes up, but only in tiny increments, barely enough to keep pace with the cost of living. And then there are the unexpected expenses, a car repair here, a medical bill there, or the simplest thing like the electric bill jumping because the heating was on longer during a cold snap. These things aren't just interruptions, they're derailments. They make me feel like I'm constantly one misstep away from disaster. Every morning, I wake up with this gnawing anxiety. Not the sharp, overwhelming kind that sends you spiraling, but a dull, persistent weight in my chest. I get ready, sip my coffee, and scroll through my bank app to see what's left after rent and utilities. Sometimes I'm surprised to see a little money still there, but often it's just a handful of dollars. It's not enough to save, not enough to treat myself, not enough to breathe easy. I tell myself, it's just this month, next month will be better, but months blur together, and nothing really changes. I've had to give up so many things I used to enjoy. Going out with friends, grabbing a drink after work, even the little comforts like a book I wanted or a new jacket. Sometimes I feel guilty about these things, like I'm being childish or weak, but I've learned that when money is tight, even small indulgences feel like luxuries. There's this constant calculation: if I spend $5 on coffee, do I have to skip lunch later? Or worse, do I dip into the money meant for something else? It's exhausting. I live in a small apartment that's far from perfect. The landlord is kind enough not to raise the rent yet again, but I hear rumors every month about how much prices have gone up in the building. I worry about how long I can afford to stay here. Moving somewhere cheaper sounds like a solution, but cheaper usually means a longer commute, which means more money spent on gas or public transport, or even worse, less time for sleep and recovery. It's a cycle with no clear escape. Sometimes, late at night, I stare at the ceiling and think about all the things I used to dream about. Traveling, buying a home, maybe starting my own business one day. I had plans, big ones. I imagined myself finally having a bit of financial freedom, taking risks, building something meaningful. But those dreams feel like they belong to a different person, a version of me who wasn't held back by constant financial pressure. I've put those hopes on hold, maybe indefinitely. It feels like survival mode is all I can afford right now. But despite all this, I haven't given up entirely. I've found ways to cope, even if they're small or imperfect. Sometimes I talk to friends who are going through the same thing, and just knowing I'm not alone helps. Other times, I write in my journal or listen to music that matches how I feel, sometimes angry, sometimes sad, sometimes hopeful. I've started cooking more at home, not just because it's cheaper but because it gives me a sense of control in a life that often feels chaotic. And I remind myself that this phase, as hard as it is, doesn't have to define me forever. There's this complicated mix of resignation and stubborn hope inside me. I know the system is stacked against people like me, young adults with steady but modest incomes trying to keep up with a world that feels designed for those with more wealth or privilege. But I also believe in the small victories: paying off a credit card, finally saving a little emergency fund, even just getting through a tough month without falling behind. These are the moments that keep me moving forward. I want to believe that one day, I'll look back at this time and see it as a struggle I overcame, not one that consumed me. Maybe I'll be able to breathe a little easier, to dream a little bigger again. For now, I take it day by day, paycheck by paycheck, trying to find peace in the small things and strength in knowing I'm not the only one feeling trapped by this relentless financial pressure. It's hard, but I'm still here. And somehow, that feels like a quiet kind of victory. I never thought I'd be this tired. Not just physically, though I am, but the kind of exhaustion that clings to your bones, the weariness that comes from feeling like you're running in place, getting nowhere. Every day feels like a battle against a tide that's always just a little stronger than I am. The tide is this relentless pressure to keep up financially, to stretch dollars thinner than I ever imagined possible, and the growing anxiety that the moment I blink, I'll lose whatever little ground I've made. I'm in my mid-20s, and like many of my friends, I've been navigating the precarious world of early adulthood during some of the toughest economic times in recent memory. The cost of living keeps climbing: rent, groceries, utilities, and my paycheck barely nudges upward, if it does at all. It's a system that seems designed to hold me down, and it's exhausting to live inside it. I remember when I first moved out on my own, fresh from college, hopeful and naive. I had dreams, big ones, even if I wasn't exactly sure how to achieve them yet. I imagined traveling, maybe living in a city abroad for a while, and someday owning a little home that felt like mine. But those dreams have had to wait. And wait. And wait some more. The problem is not just the numbers. It's how that imbalance, the constant, creeping gap between what I earn and what I owe, seeps into every choice I make, every part of my day. Take my mornings, for example. I used to enjoy grabbing a coffee and a pastry on the way to work. Now, I bring a thermos of homemade coffee and pack my own breakfast. It's not just about saving a few dollars, though it's definitely that. It's about the feeling that every cent counts, that spending money on extras is a luxury I can't afford. Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever get to a place where I can spend without counting or stressing. Bills pile up in a way that feels like an avalanche. Rent alone is more than half my paycheck. I've learned the hard way that if I fall behind even by a small amount, the late fees and interest charges add up faster than I can catch up. Utilities get cut off or threaten to be cut off more times than I want to admit. I avoid looking too closely at my bank account because seeing those numbers get smaller and smaller makes my chest tighten. Social life has become a minefield, too. Invites to dinners, drinks, or weekend getaways come with an instant calculation in my mind: can I afford this? Will saying no again make me feel isolated? Most times, I do say no. It's easier that way, even though loneliness creeps in. The truth is, the financial pressure is not just about money, it's about connection, too. I feel like I'm falling behind socially, in ways that don't show on any spreadsheet. Work is another layer of complexity. I work full-time, often more than 40 hours, and sometimes pick up side gigs to try to close the gap. But the more hours I work, the less energy I have for anything else. I worry about burnout, but quitting is not an option, not with the bills to pay. The pandemic shifted everything, and even as things opened up again, wages didn't keep pace with inflation. So, no matter how hard I work, it's like I'm chasing a moving target that slips further away the harder I run. Some nights, I lie awake thinking about the future. Will I ever feel financially secure? Will I ever be able to put away money for emergencies or to save for a future home? I had dreams of travel and creative projects that now seem like luxuries I can't justify. Even the idea of starting a family someday feels complicated by this constant financial stress. I try to cope by focusing on small wins. If I can skip one unnecessary expense this week, that's progress. If I manage to negotiate a lower phone bill or find a cheaper grocery store, it feels like a victory. But these small wins don't erase the bigger picture, they're just tiny footholds on a steep, slippery mountain. Sometimes, I talk to friends or family, but I don't want to burden them with my worries. And honestly, not many people understand how draining this feels. The constant mental load of budgeting, the shame when you have to say no again, the fear that you're not building the life you're supposed to, those feelings don't come with an easy fix. What keeps me going is hope. Maybe it's naive, but I hold on to the belief that if I can just make it through this phase, things will get better. That someday, I'll look back and see this as a hard chapter, but one that made me stronger. I remind myself that I'm not alone in this struggle, millions of people my age are caught in the same squeeze. I still dream, even if I postpone them. I dream of a day when I can travel without watching my budget obsessively. I dream of a home with a little garden, a space that's truly mine. I dream of waking up without that heavy weight in my chest, knowing that I'm not just surviving but actually thriving. Until then, I keep going. I keep budgeting, negotiating, and making those hard choices. I remind myself that this pressure, as suffocating as it is, doesn't define me. I'm more than the numbers in my bank account or the rent that's due every month. I'm a person with hopes and resilience, trying to carve out a life in a system that often feels like it's stacked against me. This is my reality, A young adult caught in the grinding gears of an economic system that demands more than I can give, but also a person who refuses to give up on the possibility of something better. Maybe that's the most honest thing I can say. While I feel trapped, I still believe in the chance of breaking free. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.